Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro have been in a kind of a Cold War type situation for like the last month and a half or so. And Tucker put this out on one of his most recent shows.
I've got 4 draft age children. So if you're playing recklessly, fast and loose with their lives, then I have a right to despise you. And I do. So if you're Nikki Haley, who's running for president, or Ben Shapiro, or half the people I see on television casually mentioning the possibility of nuclear war or sending Americans to fight in the Middle East, or in any way involving us in a war that has nothing to do with prosperity and peace at home, nothing, in other words, to do with us, Americans, then I have a right to call you out and be really offended because it's my family. They live here. It's not a joke to me. There's nothing abstract about it.
Yeah, so basically this is Tucker Carlson calling Ben Shapiro out by name on his show, claiming that Ben Shapiro wants America to like put troops into Ukraine to fight Russia, which is like obviously the last thing that America would want to do geopolitically. It makes no sense unless Tucker is just trying to stir up drama for his own clout, right? And Ben Shapiro then responded here. Tucker is simply lying about my positions. I've been calling for a negotiated end to the Ukraine war, freezing the lines of conflict since early on in the war. I have never called for American boots on the ground in Ukraine. Ever. I have never called for American boots to defend Israel. Ever. I've invited Tucker to sit down multiple times over the past few weeks to clear the air and discuss our differences. He said he's willing, but his team has told us that he's busy for months because of all his foreign travel. That offer remains open. So yeah, basically, if I'm going to be completely honest, my read on this entire situation is that Tucker Carlson accurately is able to identify that Ben Shapiro is in a vulnerable position. Because Ben Shapiro has a lot of conservative clout, obviously, but he also is Jewish, which is, in the world of conservative politics, a huge, like, roadblock of a kind, right? Essentially, Tucker Carlson is here trying to direct his audience against Ben Shapiro, and he's trying to claim Ben Shapiro, is, aligned against Russia, and like this is, Tucker v. Shapiro would be an interesting matchup for sure, Statman, because I think Tucker would play it like almost like a wrestling match. Like he would definitely go after Ben harder than what we've seen so far. But like, yeah, I mean, it's part of the reason that like Steven Crowder thought he could get away with asking for more than $50 million is because like he intuited that the conservative audiences who are very much anti-Semitic, I mean, like you can't really argue that the conservative modern movement is not anti-Semitic when it's literally like riddled with QAnon, a conspiracy theory that alleges that Jews are essentially extracting like chemicals from tortured children in order to control the world's elite. Like the conservative mainstream movement is riddled with these ideas nonstop, and now especially with what's going on in the Gaza Strip, this has become an even more contentious issue. And I think that Tucker is trying to kind of cannibalize Ben Shapiro's audience, or at the very least radicalize his audience against Ben Shapiro, right? I think this is less a move of like Tucker Carlson actually having a real beef with Ben Shapiro, and more so positioning by Tucker Carlson to try and scoop up Ben Shapiro's audience and also attract other people from the far right to his show. Ben Shapiro's going through a midlife crisis or something right now. He's getting into conspiracy theories. He did the rap video. He's hired editors that are Zoomers. Well, I think basically what Ben Shapiro has realized is that younger people don't like his show. And so what he's doing to try and appeal to younger people is adopting like fringe conspiracy nonsense, which is, frankly how Joe Rogan got big in podcasting. He's doing like edgy PR stunts like the rap video, or edgy, he's trying to build them as edgy. And then the younger style of editing is made to appeal to Zoomers. Absolutely. You're talking way too slow for Ben Shapiro. You're right. You're right. Yeah, Miggs, I think that's a really good observation. We have this two-faced issue with conservatives. They are anti-Semitic, but they are more anti-Muslim, so they pit aid for Ukraine against Gaza and also demand more funds for Israel. Yeah, no, I mean, it's complicated by like so many other factors, right? Like, but ultimately, at the root of many of the conspiratorial ideas, and like Trump will just go out on stage and say, Jews are inherently like money grubbing. He'll just like go out and say something like that, and his conservative audience eats it up. They love it. He'll say it to a room full of Jewish people, and they'll be like, "Ah ha ha." It's crazy. I think that what Ben has realized is that he's laid in bed with a bunch of anti-Semitic fleas, and those parasites are turning on him. Yeah. I think that is also it. He needed the rebrand. Like, we've made fun of Ben Shapiro for his weird rebranding of his aesthetic lately. We've made fun of that, but it's being done to, like, distance himself from what he has been and to, like, protect himself in a way, to protect his content. And I mean, yeah, a lot of the American base for conservatism wants to fund Israel specifically to bring about end of days prophecy that involves the death of all Jews. So like it even like in their conception of funding for Israel, like it's really all about bringing an end to Jewish people too. Like it's a two birds one stone situation as far as a lot of doomsday evangelists are concerned. So anyway, this beef has been interesting to see metastasize, and it'll be very interesting to see if they do manage to actually come together and do a video together, because that is absolutely going to be top tier content for us. Beep, boop, boop, boop. What's the overlap of their audiences now? Just a guess? I mean, I would say that the overlap of their audiences has generally been like a support of Trump. But the divisions within conservatism have been deepening lately, even between like MAGA Trumpers, right? And so what's happening as the Republican Party is being radicalized farther to the right is that it's fractioning into different camps, right? So I think this is also why we've seen kind of a decline on the outward output of groups like PragerU. Like PragerU doesn't put out as much content as it used to. It doesn't seek to be as viral as it used to, and that's, I think, in part due to the fact that like they've been able to gain some amount of institutional power and they're pursuing that avenue as opposed to being like a public face. And I think part of that is due to anti-Semitism. Frankly, like being associated with Dennis Prager, like definitely puts them in a weird spot in the radicalizing conservative movement. And they would much rather instead put their efforts towards turning their entire like project into a like academic curriculum, which is what they've been doing. Like just last week, PragerU announced that it's partnering with the state of Arizona to like bring PragerU materials into the classroom. So like this is the avenue kind of they're going down, I think, increasingly. They've also managed to do that, I think, in Florida and one other state. So yeah, it's what we're seeing. Like often people on the left will talk about how conservatives tend to have a more united front. And I think that that is actually incorrect. Conservatives actually do so much purity testing. It's just that the politicians that are conservative are scared of their constituents. You know, they're scared of not meeting the purity testing, standards of their viewers, their voters, etc. You know, I think that's a good observation, Sherman Crow. Oh no, I'm not saying it's not dangerous. I'm just saying that it, from my perspective as somebody who looks at like conservative media channels a lot and their video output, my impression is that PragerU has been struggling on YouTube quite a bit. And I think that that is less due to the fact that their content in general is struggling and more to do with the fact that they're putting more money into institutional avenues of power, which I think is a very, very dangerous thing because they're actually finding success. But I think part of that change in strategy is fueled by the anti-Semitism of the conservative base. The fascists are winning the Republican Party over, backed with Christian nationalist funding. They're fighting against the established guard who actually wants to govern for tax cuts and conservative legislation like national security. You see the divide in the House GOP Freedom Caucus and the House or in the GOP Senate that has backed some good bipartisan legislation. Yeah, no, like there is this old guard of conservative Republican that just wants to do corporate bailouts, that just wants to like be left alone and be able to funnel money into their corporate overlords, right? But this old guard is largely unprincipled. And when they see a threat to their position, they are willing to immediately change which policies they support because they are spineless, right? Because they're spineless and because the conservative base is able to react in such unison against them, you know? I think that is it, I think that gets to what you're talking about, Gamer G. Yeah, their only principle is money, but in order to make that money, they need to remain in power. So they are their goal is to make money, but they're willing to cater to their base. You know? So it is twofold. They want to make money, but in order to do that, they need to maintain their position. And in order to do that, they need to funnel money to their donors, you know? And due to the way that the party has been radicalizing over time, thanks to Trump and the way that Trump has radicalized and mobilized his voter base, these classical conservatives are more and more having to bend the knee to this new radicalized MAGA movement. And it's a process that I don't think can be really undone until Trump is kind of out of the picture politically, whether it's an economic defeat or not economic, but like political defeat in 2024 or like a heart attack or something from too many cheeseburgers. Like that, it's one of those things until he's out of the picture and like not rallying folks. Like the radicalization is going to continue. The GOP currently is ruining their reputation too. But the thing is, the GOP voters don't care. GOP voters don't care. They as long as they get their guy in power and they get to own the libs, they do not care if the GOP politicians that they are putting into power are monsters or fools or charlatans. They do not care.